一本じゃなきゃ返せるさ。火がドリルマキシマム。
Hello and welcome everyone to the deck profile of the very sought after, or I wouldn't say sought after, but rather requested, very highly requested Dainexus deck profile. So I've got my trusty little drill right here with me, as you know the intro does hint at. And so Dainexus is, at first I wasn't very happy with him whatsoever, honestly, and I was very conflicted. I was like, what is this trying to do? Why should I give up the threat that Daikaiser brings to the table, that my favorite unit in the game brings to the table, for this like weird, like tanky-ish looking deck? But then I started playing around with it, despite still not really knowing what I'm doing, and then I started to figure out what I want to be doing and what this deck was supposed to be doing from the very start. So we're going to go over everything in pretty high detail. First of all, don't forget, as Mr. Solemn Vanguard does make sure to let you know, to hit that bell button. It's just to the left of the subscribe button, and make sure that all my videos deliver to your sub box. That's pretty important to get those notifications. All is good. So we're going to go over this. It's going to be quite detailed. This might end up being fairly long, but I want this to be a deck profile that lasts, once again, just like my last Daikaiser one, so I think it's quite important. So I'm going to start off with Mr. Daihawk, who's our starter of choice, and he allows you to choose 4 of your Dimensional Robo rear guards, and including him actually, to put into the soul, and then if you have a grade 3 Vanguard, you can stride into... And then if you have a grade 3 Dimensional Robo Vanguard, you can stride into any Dimensional Robo stride, regardless of your opponent's grade. So this is really good because you can, you know, take first stride regardless if you go first or second, unless your opponent is smart and denies your damage, because you will not be able to use Die Earth if your opponent doesn't give you that second damage. If they put the triggers, like if they attack with a 9k on your 10k, and then they put the triggers on their starter, then they won't hit, and they will give you that second damage, because that's actually a very good way to play against this deck and play against the starter as a whole. Also, we're in control meta, so like Overlord kills this, Chaos usually kills this, you know, well, I guess against Chaos it kind of depends, but mostly Overlord does kill it pretty fast, and the Ghidorah matchup isn't very fun either, so like the deck is a bit struggling in the current meta, I would say, but it's good against some things, but it's still like, this isn't a tier 1 deck by any means. Gallop is here to be the best DP deck for sure, but it is a fairly good deck, and the starter does help in that. So when you don't face those matchups where they can remove the Daihawk very fast, then you're usually gonna be okay. And next up we have our new grade 3 boss, which is Super Dimensional Robo Dainexus. So we do play 4 copies, and his skill is, when you stride into anything actually, you counterblast 1 and select a grade 3 Dimensional Robo from your drop zone and put it on the bottom of your deck. Then you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, select 1 Dimensional Robo from among them, call it to rearguard circle, and then your Vanguard gains the amount of power that that unit has, the base power of that unit basically, and then you return the other units back to your deck and shuffle your deck. So it makes it so that the grade 3 they put in the bottom doesn't pop up again in the top 4, but that skill is actually, at first, I was like, why is this trying to roleplay Gurgwit? I was like, what is the point of roleplaying Gurgwit? And then I realized that this deck now generates so much advantage, it's crazy. Like, it's like we traded the threat that Daikaiser had, but the weakness of consistency and advantage generation that it had, in exchange for a really good advantage engine and a win con that is kind of like hard to see, but it does happen fairly consistently, and I will note down when it does happen throughout this video. But his other skill is a GB1, which is a continuous, where all your Dimensional Robo grade 3 units get plus 10k shield and intercept. So this is really good because with cards like Die Earth, where you pull out a grade 3 from your deck, you can now turn that into a 10k shield. This kind of doesn't work too well against Ghidorah because she will not let you intercept, so that kind of hurts. But overall, it's really good because now your 10ks, like even if you drive check them, like those are 10k shields that you just drive check, so it's okay. Like, sure, you're not killing off Guardians, but you're adding a lot of shield into your hand, and that's honestly a really, really good thing. So now we're back to, once again, playing a pretty high amount of grade 3s, and, you know, we lose the threat that Daikaiser had, but not entirely, as the, well, you know, the set didn't give us a proper backup grade 3, as some would say, but that doesn't mean that there aren't good backups to begin with, which takes us to true Ultimate Dimensional Robo Great Daikaiser. So I'm still playing the Legion, because we do play Stark in this deck, and I will say what you can swap out instead of the Stark, but like, if you can afford Stark, you play it. If you don't, you play what I'm going to tell you, or you know, whatever you want yourself, but I will only suggest what you can swap out into. Reason why is because I think the Legion is still quite solid. It gives you the chance to play Dainexus Legion in the G zone. I don't play it in this build, but feel free to do that. I'll let you know what you can swap out for that as well. But in the end, it's still a nice Legion, and like, it works. If you mess up on Stark and you don't win the game on that turn, then it still puts in work. So honestly, and plus Dainexus is my favorite unit in the game, it's kind of hard for me not to play it. And then on top of that, I play, at first I started off with 1, my traditional amount, then I went up to 2 to go up to 10 grade 3s, and now I went up to 3 great Dainexus, which is the Legion mate. Main reason why 3 is because I wanted 11 grade 3s for his skill and for the way that the deck works. I'll explain that as we go along. But also because there are times when, like, let's say I need Stark to finish the game, so I can actually, like, let's say I only have 1 Dainexus, so I can go into the Great Dainexus and still discard 1. If I only play 2, the chance of me having another Great Dainexus in my hand is going to be quite low. So I play 3 for that reason, and like, there's not really any better backup grade 3s in my opinion than, you know, the Legion. Some people, I talked about Dayard at first, but I don't think it's actually that good. Plus it delays your deck a lot, and like, you want to be writing into him immediately anyway, so like, it doesn't really work in general. But those are the grade 3s. Now we're going to go over the grade 2s, which have changed a lot, actually entirely. And we're starting off with the new 10k, well, in quotation marks, which is Dipole. So Dipole is a 10k, but when you call him or write him, you either have to reveal a grade 3 dimensional robo from your hand, or you have to have one already on your Vanguard circle, otherwise he loses 5k power. So it's just like every other 10k, except instead of revealing like an Overlord or a Dark Face, you have to reveal a grade 3 dimensional robo. So it's quite specific, but all of our grade 3s are dimensional robo, so we don't struggle with that. His second skill is continuous on rearguard circle. When you have a grade 4 Vanguard, he gives himself and any of your other grade 3 rearguards plus 5k. That's really good because you can drop him in the back, even behind the Vanguard, because you don't really need the Vanguard booster in most cases, and then you will put these up to 16k. If you drop 2, 21k. With Dimax, that's a 21k/26k with a crit, and that is really, really good. Plus other things that we play in the deck interact with this really, really well. So this is good because when you go into your first Dire Stride, you can pull him in a grade 3, and then just like put him in the back, and you put 16k, and then like you have something else if it's a grade 3 also 16k, because 15k isn't a magic number. So unless you're going first and you get Diehawk off and your opponent's at like 10 or 9k, then this will be hitting for magic numbers, but otherwise it's not really doing that much unless you drop a 6k Guardian behind, booster rather, behind it. So, but still really, really good card. I started off with like 2 of him, then put up to 3, and then I realized just how useful he is and put him up to 4, because there's the like grade 2s in this deck have been a trip, and like I've just been rediscovering the whole archetype honestly while testing other things. So this is honestly like, this might not even be my final deck list, so like if I make any other changes, I will be putting them up on my Twitter, sometimes Facebook, but this is the list, like after testing and trying out many various builds, this is the one that I'm happiest with right now, and I think it like at least competes a little bit in the current meta, and it can actually, like in the right hands, could potentially, like, you know, win you some shop tournaments and whatever. But I don't think I would take this. If I'm going to take Dimensional Plays to Regionals, I will take Gallop, but I think this is still a very solid deck. So our next grade 2, which at first I didn't run at all, and then put it up to 2, and then realized he needs to be at 4 of, which is Die Crusher. So Die Crusher has 2 skills. When you call him, if you have a grade 3 or higher Vanguard, then you soul charge 1. If the soul charged unit has Dimensional Robo in its name, then he gains plus 2k until end of turn. Second skill is once per turn GB1. When you drive check a Dimensional Robo grade 3, then he gains plus 10k. Only once per turn though. So beforehand, we would be checking grade 3s for the sake of, you know, just blowing up shields. For Daikaiser to pick up a perfect shield, knee it in the stomach, and then like suplex it into space. So now it's a little bit different. We're still checking grade 3s, but we're checking them in order to get, you know, extra shield in our hand, and to also pump him up to be a 21k attacker, which is a pretty nice number. Plus with Dimax, that also works pretty nice. So definitely not complaining. Really good card. The most important part, like the power is nice, but the most important part is the soul. Trust me on this, the soul is by far the most important part, because we're going to get into why. I think those of you that have already been playtesting the deck know why, but it's really, really important. Now our final grade 2, rounding it off at 10 grade 2s total, is going to be Barrist. At first I ran this guy at 4. But then I put him down to 3, and then I realized that he gets a little bit clunky at times because you don't really want to use his skill too many times. Maybe like once a game sometimes, honestly, because it does cost a lot. So his skill is, when you call him down, you give your Vanguard the skill that when it attacks the opponent's Vanguard, you can count +1 to draw a card. Now the problems of that is that if you want to interact with Laurel, obviously you're usually swinging at rear, so this won't go off when you swing at rear. And then on top of that, like, it's the count +1, which does hurt. Like in Daikaiser, you could get away with like overextending with your counterblast a bit because you had Daibazooka that would randomly countercharge, but that randomly countercharge would happen pretty often, you know, in most games. So with this deck, you don't have that as much, sadly. Even though I run Daikaiser, I almost never ride into him. He's just there to be a 10k shield and a very like emergency panic button backup. So it's not worth running Daibazooka just for that. So this grade 2 lineup is better. He's good. I think he's better in some other decks. He's probably better in Daikaiser. He's good in Zeal. He's good in Cosmic Heroes, but I wouldn't say that he's a max copy of in Dainexus. But as a 2-of, it's still definitely good. So now moving into our grade 1s, the first card of which we're going to have is the Stride Fodder, which is Dai Supporter. So her skill is, she counts as a grade 3 in 2 scenarios. 1 when you're discarding for Stride, and 2 when you're selecting a grade 3 Dimensional Robo from your drop zone for the cost of a skill. Not necessarily Dim Robo, but you know, it is a Dim Robo. But when you select for grade 3 like Daijet or Dainexus, you can treat this as a grade 3 to put back to your deck. So that's quite cool. And then when you do use it as a Stride Fodder, you give any one of your Dimensional Robo units plus 4k, so that's really nice. You can put it anywhere. And then on top of that, you can select a Dimensional Robo card from your drop zone and put it into your Soul, which is also really good. Like I said, Soul is super important. I only play 3 because you only play it actually for that, mainly for that second skill, and sometimes for this first skill, but mainly, you know, like you're almost always going to have a Stride Fodder anyway, so this puts it up to like, what, like, you know, you go into 1, you have like, what, 10 grade 3s plus this, like 13 Stride Fodders that you can still get to. So it's definitely not, like, the Stride Fodder isn't that important, it's more the in-soul skill that's really nice. So you can grab some spicy targets, namely Dai Battles from your drop zone, so it's really, really nice. Now we're going to get into our other new grade 1, which is Dai Raptor. So I'm playing 3. At first, I really didn't like this guy for whatever reason, but then I realized that he's actually really good because his skill is, when he's called, even if you're on GB1, as long as your Vanguard is a Dimensional Robo, even if you're on turn 1 actually, like you can call him as long as your Vanguard is a Dim Robo, and then you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. If you can select up to 2 grade 3 Dimensional Robos from among them, and put them in the drop zone, up to 2. Doesn't have to be 2. If you put, and then the rest of them go back to the deck. So if you put 1 of them, then he gains plus 4k, but if you put 2, you draw an extra card, which is what you want to be doing. Like, that's super nice. So like, because part of the deck, because you're going through your grade 3 so fast, like, you're not only putting them into your hand as shield, but also like filtering through your deck and like quickly putting them to the drop zone is also good because you'll be able to use his skill like immediately when you stride, even if it's on Daihawk. But so, like, being able to filter through your deck is quite nice. You won't put this down if you don't have a Dainexus already in your hand, because you don't want to discard the Dainexus before you actually have it in your hand to ride, because this deck does rely on Dainexus pretty hard. But that extra card in hand is, like, really good. Like, always when I playtest this deck, even in the games that I lose, at most points of the game, I will have at least 10 cards in hand because of how much advantage the deck like generates. So like this relies on a counterblast to actually draw you a card, but it stays for that turn, so like potentially if you restand you can use it twice, but like you won't be really doing that because you flip through counterblast so fast. But with this, it's free, you can do it on turn 1, turn 2, like before you even ride to grade 3, so it's really nice. That extra cards in hand in early game is really nice. It is RNG dependent, but you play 11 grade 3s for a reason, so you do mess up your grade ratios a little bit in exchange for that, but like we played 10 grade 2s and then we're gonna, you know, get to the grade 1 count after that. But the next grade 1 that we play is the Perfect Shield, which is Dimagnel. So he does have Dimensional Robo in the name, and when he Perfect Guards, he can only Perfect Guard for Dimensional Robo units, which most of the deck is. And then when he appears in Guardian Circle, if you have a Dimensional Robo Vanguard, you choose it, and then for each Dimensional Robo in your soul, your Vanguard gets plus 4k that many times. So if you have 5 of them, it gets plus 20k, and it gives the power to the Vanguard. So even if, let's say you're playing against Daikaiser, and it, like, you know, suplexes the Perfect Shield into the drop zone, then even though the cannot be hit skill is nullified, you still have that plus 20k from your in-soul skills, which could even be more. It could be like 28, 32, because you gain that much soul in the deck. So it's really, really nice. Like, it's good in the mirror match, and just overall, it's quite nice to be able to do that. So overall, pretty cool. Also, the other scenario where you would use this is, let's say, like, it's your last card in hand. So, like, you play it, And like, yes, you can't perfect shield because you don't have another card to drop, but because you gain all that, you know, power on your Vanguard for that battle from the skill, it's actually kind of okay. So like sometimes, like I don't even, like let's say I have too many PGs, I don't want to discard, so I'll just drop this like a 20k shield, and it's like, okay, like I just have to explain the skill to my opponent because they're like, why are you dropping a perfect shield without discarding? So, you know, that's it. But it's honestly a pretty good card. If Monk had Dimensional Robo in the name, I would play that because that's, in my opinion, one of the best perfect shields. But honestly, like this one is also good. It has Dimensional Robo in the name, which is really, really important because with Dainexus, you can only, you know, you essentially can only work with Dimensional Robos, so it's a bit unfortunate, but yeah. Our last grade 1, which rounds us off at 12 grade 1s, which is quite dangerously low, but, you know, you basically, like when you do your first mulligan, you throw away grade 3s, unless it's a Dainexus, then you probably keep it, but otherwise, like, just throw it away. Like, you want grade 1, grade 2, and then, like, you will draw into one of your grade 3s at least, so that's that. But so, our last grade 1 is 2 copies of Laurel. Now, I'm sure you're confused because Laurel is best, Laurel is wife, Laurel is everything in this deck, honestly. But that was the case for Daikaiser because Daikaiser couldn't really generate much advantage on its own. It would rely on hitting for Laurel, hitting for Daijet, things like that, playing draw triggers and all that stuff. So that's why in Daikaiser, Laurel was a 4 of and like essential. In Dainexus, I could even understand in some cases taking it out as a whole, but I think it's still important because it still works wonders on your first stride. Still, when you do the Die-Hawk combo into Die-Earth, you still want to be using this because it gets you those cards back really fast. So that's like the nice part of it. And then like the other thing is that it's also quite good against, like with some cards like the new X Gallop, and like that might sound weird, but like you attack first time for like 80k with 4 drive checks, and like let's say you don't get a crit, so then you restand, you attack with 80k, and then like they will go like, okay, I'm on 4, he won't drive check anything, he doesn't have a crit, so I'll let it pass. And I'm like, oh, by the way, Laurel skill, like that actually happened. So like I wouldn't underestimate his abilities, honestly. So Laurel is still a good card in my opinion. Like Laurel is just Laurel. I'm only playing 2 though because like you need Dimensional Robos in their names for this deck. So we're only playing 2, and I think that's fine for now. So getting into the triggers, we are playing 4 of the brand new heal Kathy, who is our you know, the heal that every client is getting. When you G-Guard, you can bind her and another heal from your drop, and then you either countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. In this deck, you want to be countercharging because like it doesn't have the same availability of countercharging randomly like Bazooka did in Daikaiser, so she's really important for that countercharge in this deck, together with Atlantis Dolphin, our G-Guard. So very, very important, honestly, like really, really blessed. And plus she's drawn by Lukir's Artist, that's like super good, like even better. Anyway, getting on to the rest of the triggers, which are going to be a bit special, so I will warn you beforehand. You can play whatever you want. Like, you can play vanilla, I mean, you can play rainbow, you can play 8 draws if you really want, you can play 6 draw, 6 crit, you can play 12 crit. Like, there is a lot of freedom you can do with this deck, but this is the trigger lineup that from testing, I will explain why I feel is the best. So to begin with, we have 6 crits, so 2 Die Wolves and 4 Die Battles. One of my Die Battles isn't foil, I'm a heretic, I'm sorry. But the reason why Die Battles is maxed is because with the Stridefighter skill, when you can grab anything from the drop zone into the soul, you can actually grab him and then use his in-soul skill to give your Vanguard plus 3k. So like it's nice because like you have that availability, so it's quite cool. So we have 6 crits. And then the other thing is going to be 6 stands, but we're going to break it down into the 2 different cards. So first of all, we do have the brand new Die Draft. So we play 4 of it because its skill is quite simple, but it's really nice. You slide it into your soul when you're on grade 4, and then you draw a card and give your Vanguard plus 4k. That's good because you draw the card, like draw triggers will draw you the card, but you get a 10k shield out of this and you get that card anyway. It's like a luck bird. But that extra 4k is really important because like on Stark, you put yourself up to 40k that you can hit 3 times. On X Gallop, that's even better because you're 26k to begin with, and let's say like you with her, you put yourself up to 30k, and then if you use Die Earth first stride, and then you G-guarded Atlantis Dolphin to flip 1, so you're on 4 face up, so from GB3, X Gallop gains 40k, so you're on 70k, and then from his own skill, he get another 10k from flipping the 1G unit. So that way, just by using her, you round off that magical number, and that's really, really nice. The Stridefighter does the same, and so like that's the good part of it, honestly. Like that, just like sliding in, giving the power, and that's it. And there you go. Like you've got your X Gallop ready to go. So that's really important for that and the extra draw, but the stand skill is also really important because we have strides now, really important strides in the deck that work really well with stands. And so our other stand of choice is Linka. So she does slide herself into Soul on GB2, and if you have a 20k or more power Vanguard, you draw 1, and if your Vanguard's power is 35k or more, she gives a skill to the Vanguard that when you check a grade 3, you can Soul Blast 1 to kill off the skill of a Perfect Guard. So it's not to kill the Perfect Guard, but to, you know, get rid of the nullifying skill. But yeah, so it's really important, and so I'm playing 6-6 just because these stands are actually really important. For a while I actually played 8 stands for crit, but then I decided, I realized that I'm missing 2 more crits to really be able to be doing pressure at all times the way I want to be. So this is the main deck, but honestly this doesn't explain much. We really have to look into the G-Zone now to explain exactly why I've built this deck this way, and why this soul is so important, and why this grade 3 count is so important, and why the stand triggers are so important. Alright, so going into the G-Zone, we're going to immediately go off the new stride, which is Magna Die Bird. And this guy, at first, I thought this was just hot garbage, complete, utter trash, but boy was I mistaken. So, his skill is, we do play him at 4 copies, Persona Flip, once per turn, obviously, and then he gives you the skill for the whole turn, and that's really important. It's for the whole turn. Daikaiser's always been just for that battle, but this is for the whole turn. So, overall, Daikaiser Leon is for that battle, for that turn, but it's just him. So anyway, for that turn, when your opponent places a Guardian, you may Soul Blast 1, and look at the top 3 cards of your deck. If they're all Dimensional Robos, you can choose a grade 3 from among them and put it into your hand, and then you destroy your opponent's Guardian. This does not nullify Perfect Shields, no it doesn't say that, but it does, you know, kill off G-Guards, kill off everything else, but even that's not the important part. The important part of this skill is the put a grade 3 to your hand, because our Dainexus is giving that grade 3 a plus 10k shield, which is super important. And then with Die Bird, what you essentially do, and the reason why we play stands, is you go into Die Bird, you play down your attackers, and then you go swing. They drop a 5k, Soul Blast 1, check top 3, okay, let's say you get the grade 3, you kill it off. They drop another 5k, then you Soul Blast 1 again, check top 3, okay, let's say you got a Laurel in there, damn it, I can't use the skill. So then, like, it's okay, like they guarded a little bit more than normal, and like you Soul Blasted 1 for nothing, but it's okay, because what you want to be doing is using the skill every single possible time. They drop a PG, you can't kill it, but you use the skill anyway, because you're going to Soul Blast 1, check top 3, you get the grade 3, it's okay, you can't destroy the Perfect Guard, it's fine. But what you really want to be doing is getting that grade 3, because why are those grade 3s important? They gain plus 10k shield, they're just 10k shields, like that's so important. They'll work as a stride fodder if you still need it after all those grade 3s in your hand, but most importantly, it filters your deck like crazy. The main win condition of this deck now is to go into him second stride usually, and like filter through your deck like crazy, and then next turn go into one of your game-winning strides, because your deck is filtered. It's gonna be mostly triggers at this point, unless you like went through all of them at the start of the game. And so like that's just so amazing, because you can just get rid of all the grade 3s so fast through him and through Diraptor and everything. Like he's just so good. Like I play 4 just because I like to have him as a backup, but you could actually take out 2 for Daikaiser Leon. I might test that a bit more. I wasn't too happy when I first tested it, so that's why I put this up to 4. But honestly, like if you don't have access to Daikaiser Leon, don't worry, just play 4 of this. Like this, the point of it, just focus on the fact that the point of it is not to kill off Guardians. The point of it is to get grade 3s, which, I mean, it goes in together, but like if they PG, you still use the skill, just use it. That's why accelerating the soul as fast as possible in your first few turns is really crucial, because you want to just amass the soul really fast to use it as much as possible. You don't really want to go into this first stride, because they're just going to no-pass everything, maybe PG the Vanguard, so you're going to get his skill off like once. You want to be going for him when they're at like 3 or 4, or like more, like I guess 3 or 4 is ideal, because then they're going to want to guard the smaller attacks, and you can like start, you know, being a bit annoying and like soul blasting all the time to try to get rid of the small shields. But like even if you don't, it's okay, because you're trying to filter through every time, and that makes it work out. And so it's just like, it's such a, at first on paper it seemed like such a bad card, but when I played it I was like, oh my god, this isn't just a card, this is an engine. So really crucial card. And so like it took me a while to understand his proper use, but once I did I was like, whoa, that is definitely quite crazy. So anyway, our still main favorite first stride is going to be Die Earth. Counterblast is becoming a bit of an issue in this deck again. This is Counterblast 2. and Persona Flip in order to search your deck for grade 2 and grade 3 Dimensional Robo and Superior Call them. He gains the crit if you have 2 or more other face-up G units with Dimensional Robo in their names. You usually won't have that, so don't even think about it if you go into this first stride, because we don't have a G guard that has Dimensional Robo in its name. But regardless, it's still a good skill. If you're on 3 damage, you can use both him and Dainexus at once. If you're on 2 damage, I would prioritize this, obviously, rather than Dainexus and then having one counterblast you can't use. Like, if you're on 1 damage and you really need to stride and don't have face-up units, then like go into this. Like, you won't do that much on the first stride turn with him, but it's a start, I will say. So, but usually this is going to be your first strike target anyway, and so you just have to be careful with your counterblast. Next, we're going to go into our killing strides. First of which is the Dainexus, which does Persona Flip and then gives himself plus 15k and plus 2 crit, and gives your front row rear guards plus 5k each and plus 1 crit each, which is really big. So combined with Dipole, that's a plus 10k at least if you have 1 Dipole on the field. So that like 21ks with crits is pretty scary. Combine that with stance, 21k with a crit, they guard it. Okay, let me like attack with Vanguard, get a stand, pshoo, go again. Like, that's pretty cool. Having that threat is really, really nice. So honestly, just sexy, just beautiful. So he's really, really good. You do have to have 4 face-up G units for that, so you cannot go into him first stride, obviously. You're going to be going into him when your opponent's at 3. I wouldn't. I would go into Magna Dibird when your opponent's at 3. This is punishing at 4. Like, when I played, because I played Daikaiser for nothing else but Daikaiser for tournaments for entirety of 2017, I understand, like, basically, like, to play the deck well, you have to know the game like the back of your hand, and, like, know when each deck wants to do what, and when you should be pressuring them. So, but on a global scale, you go into Dimax when your opponent's at 4. That's why you can only play, it's fine to play 2, because like, what are you going to use the second one for? Like, if they're at 5, you have other things to do. So this is perfect when they're at 4. When they're at 3, it's a bit risky. You're better off going for this, and like, you're not going to first stride, obviously, because it's not worth it. Against Link Joker, it's okay, because sometimes if they don't have the PG, the 41k is a bit scary for them, you know, with a double crit, so it's quite good. But we still have other answers to Link Joker as well, such as the new X Gallop Stride, whose skill is, first off, GB3, he gains plus 10k for every face-up G unit, which is like super big. And then his other skill is, when he attacks, you can count almost 1 and flip a G unit face-up. If he has 40k or more power, then you gain an extra drive check, so that's going to be a quadruple drive. And then if his power, at the end of the battle, if his power is 80k or more, you stand him and he loses all 4 drives. So we already mentioned him earlier when I was talking about Laurel, but really good stride. He does have burst, so you can use Linka, so you can like ask them to overcommit, basically like drop like double perfect shield for him. And honestly, like when you check a crit, that's why I bumped up crits to 6, because like when you check a crit on him, like, he stands with no drive checks, but if they don't have a PG, like, 90k with a crit is pretty scary, because, like, if they're on 4, like, they're gonna die if they don't overcommit to guard it. And, like, I've been forced to overcommit by my Gallop opponents, so, like, that's why I'm saying that this is a good card. So, in Gallop, it's obviously even better, but it's good in this, just, like, not as a, like, in Gallop, it's like you can stride it anytime, but in Dainexus, it's like a third. It can be a second stride, actually. You can go first stride this, and then G-Guard Atlantis to flip another G-Guard, so you have GB4, and then you go into this, you just need an extra 4k from anything, and then he's self-sustained, so that's why he's so good. Then the other thing is the 1 Stark, which, you know, I said if you don't have access to a Stark, you get yourself another Gallop, because he's actually good, he self-sustains. Otherwise, you could, like, take down 1 G-Guard to play another pair of Dimax, but I don't really think that's a good idea. The Stark is good because, like, both of these are really punishing at 5. This is also good at 4. So, like, these are good when your opponent's at 4. This is, like, you don't really use it when your opponent's at 4 unless they have, like, a really low hand and, like, no PGs, like you've seen from drive checks. You just read your opponent's hand. But when your opponent's at 5, you're just gonna go into, you can go into the Stark quite safely. I mean, unless they have, like, a 20k, like, a 20 card hand or something. Like, if they're pretty low on hand and they're 5 damage, you can pretty safely go for the Stark. And, like, it's a good card. And also, I forgot to mention, but like in the main deck, as you saw, I played the Daikaiser Legion, you can actually play full Daiyusha as backup, like reverse Daiyusha and great Daiyusha, and then instead of the Dairaptor, you could play Go Cannon, and then Go Cannon combined with these two is pretty scary because it gives them a crit, so like a 40k over 3 attacks with a crit is pretty scary. This is like a 80k, 90k with a crit is also quite scary, like a base crit without having to check it is also quite nice. So yeah, also I forgot to say Stark skill. When you ultimate stride into him, you counterblast 2, and then he attacks 3 times, but with only 1 drive check, and he never rests. So he always like attacks once, 2, 3, and he never rests, so he always stays stood. So the Laurel will not work with him because you cannot stand anything. There's nothing to stand because it's always standing. So yeah, he's good. He is a good card. If you can get him, that's good. If you can't, it's not the end of the world, so don't worry about it too much. Next, I play the 1 GB8 Die King. Still very important. This is a super punishing stride because I always get people asking me like, oh, like, have you ever won a game with Die King? I'm like, yes, many, even in tournaments, because on GB8, when you attack with him, he gains a crit and a plus 10k for every one of your rear guards. So plus 50k plus 5 crit, attacks for 6 damage if it hits, they PG it. Then, end of battle, if his power is 80k or more, you give each of your units plus 10k for every crit you have. So you give plus 60k, plus 60k, plus 60k, plus 60k, plus 60k. So it's like 136, bam. 136, bam. Do you have enough perfect guards to protect that? I don't think so. And like, GB8 is so easy to achieve. This flips, this flips, this flips, this flips. Your G-Guard flips. So it's like, you get there so fast, it's crazy. Like, third stride, easy, no problem. So like, I've won games in tournaments, even with Dainexus, not just with Daikaiser. It's like, it's no problem whatsoever. So, next up we have our G-Guards. I play 2 of the Atlantis Dolphin, which only works when your Vanguard is being attacked. I do make that mistake sometimes of using against other attacks. I apologize. I did it in CardProtagonist video, so I do apologize for that. But when your Vanguard is attacked and you go into him, you can flip a G-Guardian, and then he gains plus 5k shield for each of your rear guards, so like maximum plus 25k shield. But if his shield is 30k or more, you countercharge 1, soul charge 1. Really important because this deck likes soul, and it struggles with counterblast, so really important. I played 2. In Daikaiser I played 1 because you didn't need that much countercharge. But with him, it's just like so important to play to get that extra countercharge out of there. So it's really, really, really good for that. And now our last few G-Guards. We have the GO5, which when placed, you soul blast 1 card with 5k power or more, and then he gains plus 10k shield, and then if you took damage that turn, he gains another 5k shield. So we're in a meta with like Deluge and the Purge giving you like damage in main phase. So like, you're just gonna go into this like first battle like, hello, 30k shield. So it's quite nice. You don't use this, like when you have 3 rear guards, you can use it for the counter charge because you'll be 30k shield. 4 or 5, obviously, best G-Guard. When you're on 2 or 1 rear guards, you go for this instead usually, or one of the other G-Guards. The new one of which being the Zeal G-Guard, which when you place it, you soul blast 1 and you minus 5k from the attacking unit just for that battle. So that one is just that battle, but then you make counterblast 1 and you give your Vanguard plus 5k until end of turn. I really like that because that's good against like Tabas and just like multi-attacking decks in general that like poke you for like scale. Even scaling attacks are okay because that's a 5k shield you're saving every time, and like I have survived turns just because I dropped this as my first Guardian, and then I could save on 5k shield every time because you have a 16k base Vanguard. In Gallop it's even better because you have an 18k base Vanguard. So super good. I really like this. Some people don't, but I personally am quite a fan. And then I play 1 Dismal. It's like a medical, really. So that's basically it. So this is what the deck looks like for now. Like I said, there are a lot of adjustments that you can make. There are so many different ways to build this deck, but I know that just like myself at the start, a lot of people are confused on how to even start building the deck. So I hope this at least gave you some pointers. So that's gonna be it for me today. Don't forget to hit that bell button if you haven't already to receive notifications when I do upload. And so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. This is obviously quite long because when I do a Dimensional Plays deck profile, it usually is quite long because I have to explain everything and this has to last. And then like if I'm gonna do another one for Dainexus, it'll be more of like Solemn Vanguard style where he just like slaps cards on the playmat and just quickly says like for this, to this, you know, that kind of thing. So like if I do another one where like there's like a Fighters Collection or like a meta call that I have to make and like I want to tell you guys about it, then there'll be more in that like very short and fast format. But for this, it's I wanted to explain everything so you guys know how the deck works, what are the pressure points, and how the engine works with Magna Dybrid and Dainexus himself. So I hope you guys give this deck a try. It's very fun, honestly. It's not tier 1, but it is a good time, and I think you'll enjoy it, and you can definitely top some shop tournaments as well. So that's gonna be it for me today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and don't forget that bell button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.